Hello, everybody. Mr. Ray here, Euclid Public Library. And before I begin, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And I want to see if you can answer these questions. Most of us think we can, but when we really ask these questions, it makes us pause and really think. And we really don't never really know the answer to them. So here's the first one. Who are you? Simple enough, right? Simple enough. Here's the second one. How'd you get here? Pretty good. That's pretty easy too. Then the third one is, where are you from? And I'm not talking about the neighborhood you're from, although that does count, but I'm talking about your people. Where are your people from? Do you know? Would you like to know? The answer to those questions, I hope, is yes, because we have a program here at Euclid Public Library this summer that will teach you how to find out those answers. And it's our virtual teen Finding Your Roots or genealogy program. And we are very excited to get this started. We've done it a few times in the past, but this is the first time that we actually have this sort of extension, this video that can go along with it. So today, what you're going to see is an interview. And Miss Temah, who works with me in the teen section, she, some kind of way, she got her niece, Paige, thank you, Paige, for helping us out, and her mom, who was Paige's grandmother, to actually sit down and give us an example of what an interview is like, your family interview. Now, why are we starting here? Because this is the first stage of finding out who you are, where you came from, and how you got here. You try to find the oldest person that you can in your family who's willing to talk to you. And then you want to ask them some open-ended questions. You don't want to ask them questions that they can simply answer yes or no. So what's the point of all of this? Why is it that Miss Temah and Mr. Ray are so adamant about you learning about your family tree or your family history? Well, that answer is not so simple, so I'm going to have to get a little deep on you just for a minute. I'm going to be really brief. So think about this. American history is not just something that you read in a book. American history is not something that you see not just something you see depicted in a movie or a documentary. Guess what? American history is you. You are a part of this beautifully warped thing that we call American history. Now, how do you find your place in that American history, on that history of America, is finding out where your people are from. In other words, how did you get here? How did they get here? Who are they? What's their names? When were they born? And guess what you might find out? 9 times out of 10, you'll find a relative or an ancestor that fought in World War II. You'll find a family member or an ancestor that marched in the Civil Rights Movement. You'll find that you have, these war veterans in your family that are decorated, that need to be celebrated. And they need to be celebrated by you. You might find that your great ancestor may have owned some lavish business. And you never cried. And what if you love entrepreneurship? Now you find out, well, might be where I got it from. That's how you find, in my opinion, your place in this beautifully warped thing. And I keep saying that because that's what it is. It's a beautifully warped thing called American history. Finding out where your people are from. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at the first portion of Paige and her grandmother's interview. Now, pay close attention to the questions that she asked. She asked 2 in this first segment. 2 very important questions. So let's take a look.
Did you know your grandparents?
Yes, I did know my grandparents. My mother's parents, Ellen and Lorenza, my grandfather. They lived in Ohio and here with us. And also my father's parents, Grandma Curtis, called her Grandma Curtis, and my grandfather, Dee Dee. They also lived here in Ohio with us.
Where were they born?
Okay, my mother's parents were born in Wetumpka, Alabama. Yeah, my mother's parents. My father's parents uh, were born in North Carolina. Yeah, North Carolina. And in Winston-Salem was where my father was born. But his parents actually came from Alberton, Georgia.
Excellent. Great job, Paige. Great job, Grandma. I can't thank you enough for being a part of this video. Temah, awesome sauce. Okay, so now, Paige asked two very important questions. The first one was, she asked Grandma, did you know your grandparents? She didn't automatically assume that she knew them because not everybody does know their grandparents. But so she phrased it in a way it's inquisitive. Did you know your grandparents? And Grandma answers, hey, yes, I did. And then she starts giving names. And then she gives locations. Awesome. That gives Paige a lot of information to start digging and journeying back into time. But then she follows that question up with where were they born? That's a huge one. And then Grandma, she gives her states that lead her down south: Alabama, North Carolina, Georgia. So now Paige has a journey to take. She has to not only travel back in time, she has to move region. She has to come out of the Midwest, and she gets the chance. She gets to go down to Alabama back in the past. So she gets to time travel a little bit, which is really cool. So now I want you to see the second and third segments of the interview that Paige and her grandmother did. And these questions that she asks are really open-ended. And it's the same question in each segment. And what it does is allow Grandma to reminisce. It allows her to go back in the past and pull out some of her favorite memories. So Paige asks her, do you have any, what are your memorable moments with your grandparents? And then Grandma says this.
Have any memorable moments with your grandparents?
Yes, I remember when we were children, my grandmother, Ellen, she would take us to Euclid Beach Park when we were small. And I remember the adventure because we have a big family, and we would go and see the Laughing Lady, and we would get on rides, and she would say, you have a choice. You can have an ice cream cone or you can get on a ride. And I would be like, oh, I want the ice cream cone. And then she would be, oh, go ahead, get on the ride too. So she was very sweet, and we enjoyed our moments and times with her.
Do you have any other memorable moments with your grandparents?
Yes, I do. My grandmother, Curtis, my father's mother, she was a member of a Baptist church for 50 plus years, and she did a lot of baking. She baked for funerals and weddings, and she was such a great cook. Everybody knew her pound cakes, her coconut cakes, and it was something she enjoyed doing for the community.
I don't know about you all, but stuff like that really, really, really impresses me. Not just because Paige is a teenager speaking to her grandmother about her family. That's cool. And I know that's kind of squeamish for a lot of teenagers to sit in a room and stay still and talk to old folks about old folks stuff that they may not be interested in. But trust me, you won't be sorry if you choose to sit down and do this. Find the oldest person in your family that is willing to talk to you and ask them open-ended questions. This is called the interview. So let me give you a little bit, some examples of what questions to ask, some that Paige already reviewed for us. So Paige asked her grandmother, did you know your grandparents? Yes. Grandma went and just took off. Then she asked them, where were they born? Another great question. Another good question to ask would be, when were they born? If you know, they may not know. Sometimes dates get blurry when you start going back in time and talking about people's birth dates, because birth certificates, once you get far enough back in time, they didn't really have birth certificates back then. They were called ledgers. So they kind of hand wrote when people were born in this book. So it gets kind of blurry. Some more questions to ask would be, do you know what they did for a living? Do you know if they served in the military? Do you know what nationality they were? Things like that really will bring out a bunch of information and really kind of start shaping a story for you. And because that's the key, that's what you want. You want to begin to sort of create this story, this narrative that you can just tell, that you can tell other people. It's called an oral history. That's what we want to do for this first stage of finding out where your people are from. You know, our next family history program will be on July 9th. It's a Monday. So feel free to join us. We'd love to have you. Join in. It'll be a Zoom session, and you can go to our calendar, euclidlibrary.org, and look up on July 9th, and you can sign up. You can register for it. So I'll be there. Miss Temah will be there. We're going to venture into pedigree charts, which is, the generational chart. Did you get the right names and date of births and places of birth? We're going to venture into that next. So we're going to take this thing one step at a time, and hopefully we'll get you there. We'll get a story, and you'll get to learn a lot about your people and where you're from and how you fit into this beautifully warped thing called American history. We'll see you soon.